Hi, I'm Jo from the London Nutritionist. Welcome back to my clinic. As it's coming up to exam time and we're just about to go into half term, I thought it might be useful if I gave you a few tips on how to eat well during your revision and also on exam day. So I'm going to talk a little bit today about things like iron and energy and hydration and all of those kind of things to make studying that much easier. I know what it's like to study. I did my exams, and having that kind of backup plan of really being properly nourished can be really, really helpful. So that's what I'm going to talk to you about today. So first I'm going to talk about iron. Iron attaches to red blood cells and it carries oxygen around the body to all of the vital organs. And if we don't get enough of it, it's a problem, because if organs don't have enough oxygen, they can't work properly, and that includes the brain. So some of the deficiency conditions, symptoms for this are things like tiredness and lethargy, and also brain fog, which is the exact opposite of what we need for revision. So it's really important that iron levels are kept nice and high. Now, teenage girls are actually much more at risk of iron deficiency than boys are. So it's really, really so important that they get enough iron, and women need twice as much iron as a man does. So sources are things like red meat is the first one that comes to mind, but also things like beans, lentils, chickpeas, those pulses, dark green leafy vegetables, fortified cereals, white bread. All of these things are really good sources of iron, and I would encourage you to include at least some of them every single day in the diet. Plant sources of iron, so things like those beans, lentils, dark green leafy vegetables, that is a different type of iron to iron that comes from animal sources like red meat. It actually needs to go through an additional process in the stomach, which requires vitamin C. So it's a good idea, if you're having some beans and lentils, to have some tomatoes or some orange juice or something that's high in vitamin C to help that process so it can be absorbed properly and then put to action. The next thing I'm going to talk about is carbs. The brain needs energy. In fact, every organ in our body needs energy. And for the brain, its preferred form of fuel is definitely from glucose. So glucose is what we break carbohydrates down into. Now, getting carbohydrate regularly throughout the day is really important, because we can't store a great deal of it. So we have a little bit in our liver, and we have some in our blood, and we have a little bit in our muscles, but we need to keep it coming through our diet. So skipping meals is not great, particularly if you're trying to revise. So making sure you have like breakfast, lunch, dinner, and maybe some snacks in between is a really good idea. Now, a portion of carbohydrates should be about the size of your fist, and that goes for anybody. If you're a giant, you need giant portions. If you're small, you need smaller portions. Eating one of those 3 times a day with a little bit in between for snacks should keep you going and keep the brain fueled with plenty of its favourite fuel source. Now, eating too much carbohydrate in one go, or eating lots of refined carbohydrate like sugary snacks and things like that, can be a problem, because it can spike the blood sugar, and that is always followed by a crash. And that is the exact opposite of what we want, because when there is a sugar crash, it means no blood sugar, it means no fuel for the brain. So keeping it topped up with smallish portions around the size of your fist is what we're looking for. No large amounts of chocolate and things like that. And I know that is something that is a risk when you're revising, but try to avoid that and just keep those portions of carbohydrates nice and sensible sizes. Breakfast. Breakfast is really important. After going all night without eating anything, your body will be low on nutrients, and so giving it something in the morning is really important. And I know that lots of people say that they don't feel hungry in the morning, but actually something is generally better than nothing. Things like whole grain cereals, granary toast, things like that are really easy and quick to eat. I love muesli in the morning. Muesli and yogurt is one of my favourites. Those kind of things can work really well. They're quick and they're easy to do before you leave the house in the morning. So those slow release carbohydrates from the whole grains will keep you going, keep your blood sugar nice and steady throughout the morning, so that you can draw on that energy without it ever spiking your blood sugar. Hydration is really important as well. In fact, everything I'm talking about today is really important. But good hydration means that our bodies can control our blood pressure and our temperature, and also transport nutrients around the body, excrete waste. There's a whole lot of jobs that water does in the body, and we really need to keep ourselves topped up in order for those jobs to keep going on properly. So dehydration We often think of the first sign of dehydration of being thirst, but actually it can start often with sort of brain fog or feeling a bit tired, lethargic, not really wanting to focus on anything. And that's again the opposite of what we want when we're trying to revise. So making sure you sip water gradually throughout the day is really important. Aim for about 1 glass of water per hour. Now, all liquids do hydrate to some extent, but very sugary drinks should be avoided, partly because of that sugar spike followed by a sugar crash, which I talked about before. But also some drinks can actually, if they're very sugary, draw water from the body into the digestive tract, and that is the opposite. It can actually be quite dehydrating. So stick mainly to things like sugar-free squashes and water, and if you want you can have a little bit of tea and coffee as well, but not too much because that can stop you from absorbing iron properly. And that brings me nicely onto caffeine actually. So caffeine can be brilliant, it can perk you up, and it also has been shown to improve memory. So it could be a very useful aid for revision. However, if you drink too much coffee and it stops you from sleeping or stops you from absorbing iron, then any of the benefits that you might get from drinking the caffeine are completely outweighed by the negatives of not getting enough sleep and not getting enough iron. Caffeine has a really long half-life. So it has its peak action after about 20 minutes, that's when you feel most perky, but it can stay in the body for a really long time, even up to about 2 weeks. So if you're drinking lots of cups of coffee during the day, that can easily build up. Also, if you can have your last cup of coffee at around before 2 p.m, then you're much more likely to have cleared enough of it from your system in order to get a good night's sleep. Snacks can be your best friend or your worst enemy, and I always like to think of a snack as an opportunity to consume some more nutrients as well as an opportunity to keep hunger at bay. So having things like slow release carbohydrates like oat cakes topped with peanut butter or cream cheese or hummus work really well. That's a little bit of protein with that, a little bit of fibre and some slow release carbohydrates. If you're having cream cheese, you've also got calcium on there as well. So those kind of snacks work really well and are so much better than a sugary chocolate bar from the vending machine. Now, if you are going to be revising outside the house, maybe a cereal bar with lots of oats and nuts and things like that in it is a better option as well than going for a bag of crisps or something. All of that stuff like oats and nuts has lots of fibre, and so it slows down the release of the carbohydrate into the bloodstream. Now, fruits and vegetables also contain loads of things like vitamins and minerals, and they are needed for every single reaction that happens in the body. They're used as catalysts and cofactors for those reactions to happen. And a snack is a really good opportunity to squeeze in another portion. So always carry a banana or something similar around with you in your bag. Now, exam day itself. Nerves can play havoc with the digestive system sometimes, so it can be better to have small snacks rather than big meals. So try to have something before you leave the house and before you go into the exam though. It will help with energy levels. I always used to take a banana when I was going in. I used to eat it just as I was going to sit down, and it did give me some slow release energy without it being too tough on my digestive system. Always keep properly hydrated. If you're going to have caffeine, don't have so much that you are jittery. It will not help you in the exam at all. Always take a bottle of water into the exam with you so you can top up. And when the exam's over, you can just cut loose and eat whatever you want. Remember that food is about celebration as well as revision. Thanks very much for watching my video today. If you've got any questions or you want to book an appointment, you can find me on my website, which is thelondonnutritionist.co.uk. You can also check out my other videos, and if you found this one useful, please like and subscribe.